Well, it's time for another video. I thought I would just give a little brief history of the time when I first met Randy Rhoads. But first of all, let me just say welcome to all of you to my YouTube channel. And I'm very grateful for the responses that I'm getting, and it's just a pleasure for me to be involved in this career and share my stories with the public, with you viewers. But if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. Tell your friends, tell your guitar buddies, your bass buddies, all the musicians you know to subscribe to my channel and to watch my videos in their entirety. There's a lot of information in each one, and I'm sure a lot of you might skim right through them. There might be a little of impatience on your part, which I understand, man. I know. But, if, like what I do is I sit down and I know that I'm going to check out some videos, and I make the time because there's a lot of interesting information out there, and I'd hate to think that you would miss it because you just want to skim through everything. But by all means, look at my videos through their entirety. So subscribe to my channel. This YouTube channel is basically, it'll be informative, but it will lead towards my Patreon channel. I'm really trying to build up my Patreon patrons, as they're called. It's a way of helping to support my endeavors and what I'm doing and filming and editing and all the expenses involved. A lot of you might be thinking that I am well off. I make a lot of money. I actually don't. I make a living like anybody else. It's very difficult for one man, keep that in mind, one craftsman to build a guitar in like 2 weeks. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe there are some of you out there that can do this. I can't do that. I really take my time. I'm meticulous in each process of fabrication from A to Z in building any custom guitar. So I do need the support. So if you really want to see some more detailed and instructional videos, by all means, subscribe to my Patreon channel, become a patron. It's only $5 a month, and I know, like me, a lot of us spend $5 on incidentals that we really don't need per month. And this is information that you'll be able to have and use throughout your whole career of your guitar playing or fabricating. I will be getting into some repairing videos as well, some general maintenance of guitars, both electric and acoustic, just to keep everybody loaded with potential information that they can use in their arsenal of guitars. But and then also not really starting a campaign, but if you're inclined to donate a small amount for the information that I'm sharing, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, I don't really want to beg, but I will ask. There's a lot of time and effort and preparation in, actually, this all started in the mid-70s or going way back when I was a child. If you've been watching the documentaries that are coming on my Patreon channel, you'll get a better understanding. But, I've put a lot of time and effort in this career, and yeah, it's my choosing, but, to give out information for free, partially, yes, I have done that up until now, but, I would really appreciate any small donation, contribution to my cause for my career that I worked so hard and long, many, many, many hours. There's been some fails, but I think by now I pretty much have it all down, and I'm sharing it with you. So if you feel the generosity to help out, I would greatly appreciate it. If you don't, that's fine. Continue to look at the videos, and I hope you get something out of them. And it's something that I will continue to do as long as our good Lord gives me breath here on this earth. But I would just like to share also when I explain stories, when I talk of stories or share stories about my experiences with rockers, rock stars, whatever you want to call them, it's for entertainment. I'm not trying to discredit anybody. I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm not trying to override anybody. I am merely just sharing my experiences at that particular time to the best of my knowledge with you. Plain and simple. There is no drama. There is no competitive edge that I'm working towards here. It's just sharing some good old stories about uh, what I experienced in dealing with the likes of Edward Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, George Lynch, Tracy G, and many, many others. I don't really like to drop names, but if I don't give a name of somebody, how are you going to know who I'm talking about? So, anyway, just, take it lightly. I don't mean no offense. When I'm speaking, it's just listen to the content. That's the important thing. And, please, just stay away from the judging, the, trying to finalize that I'm wrong. Or, I mean, if you're a negator and you want to find the negative, please don't. Just move on. Go to some other channel who you like, and that's fine. Not everybody's going to agree with me or the stories that I tell about, and that's okay. We're all different people with different minds, with different viewpoints, different opinions, and you just take my stories as a sincere experience on my behalf, and I'm just sharing it with you. That's all. That's all it is. So getting back to when I first met Randy Rhoads, first of all, I would just like to say that I miss Randy. Um, it saddened my heart back in the early 80s when he had passed on, when I got the phone call. And, like all of us, I'm sure there were many of us where we were just in disbelief. Like, really, how could this happen? He was such a young, upcoming rock star. Um, and maybe not upcoming. Maybe he was already there. I mean, when you play with Ozzy Osbourne, I would say you're already there. But in a general sense, he was upcoming still, and he was showing his talents and sharing his talents with the world. God bless Randy Rhoads. I miss him dearly, and I have, rightfully so, because of the kind of individual that he was. He was a man that was kind-hearted, very quiet-spoken. I sense no elements of arrogance. I sense no competitive edge in a boastful way. Although I'm sure, to a certain degree, he would, why we listen to other musicians, and come on, we gotta think that, well, how does my talent compare with his talent? But he was very graceful. I never really heard anything that was derogatory coming out of Randy Rhoads. He was a fantastic guitar player, which he proved to be, and I shared in one of my videos where he had played this classical piece on an acoustic guitar that was in my family at that time, and he stood out as being an original musician, extremely competent. He fit the image, and that's what I want to hone in right now. But before I get into that, he had called me, and at that time I was starting to get calls from different people. George Lynch, I had spoken to Eddie Van Halen a few times by that time, and I knew that Randy was an upcoming guitarist in a band called Quiet Riot, and but I received this call, and a very soft-spoken individual, and it was Randy Rhoads, and he wanted to set up a meeting, and he used this incident of what turned him on to me. Here I am, this young guitar builder, and there really weren't many of us around at that time. And I had just broken loose from Charvel's. I was on my own, starting my career, not knowing where I would end up. But anyway, he had been at one of the George Lynch shows, and he was backstage. And at that time, I had made a custom guitar with a Dan Electro neck for George Lynch. And George Lynch, being a proud guitar player, he shared his gear with Randy, and Randy picked up this V, played it, and he told me he just fell in love with it. And, that was an inspiration that allowed him to call me and have a guitar built with this Dan Electro neck. That I was making a lot of guitars back then, and this would be like the late 70s, mid to late 70s. I was making a lot of guitars using the Dan Electro neck, Star guitar, Strats, different types of Explorers, and I'm not going to claim that these were my guitar body inventions. They were not. Please understand that. I did not design the Strat. That goes to Fender. I did not design the Explorer. That goes to Gibson. The Star guitar started at Charvel's, from my understanding. And so, I was building a lot of guitars with the Dan Electro necks. George ended up with one. I would really like to know where that guitar is. So if anybody has any idea where that guitar is, it had sort of a V headstock, and it had it was a flying V body shape, but the V headstock hooked in, and same with the bottom of the V, and it was sort of it was black with orange stripes coming in. It didn't really look like a Bengal tiger. It was a little different than that. More graphics to the shape, to the orange stripes that would come from the sides towards the center. Typical rock guitar, single humbucking, and at that time, George Lynch, when I had built it for him, which will be another video, but he liked low action. So Randy played this guitar, and the other video that I spoke of Randy doing the classical piece, he was used to high action guitars. So when he played this guitar that George Lynch owned, I'm sure it felt really, really comfortable and easy for him to play, being as proficient as he was. So I get this call from Randy, and he proceeds to tell me that he'd like to have a custom guitar made. Can I come on down and, we'll discuss the guitar in detail and potentially get something going. So I agreed. We set up a date and time. And as far as the date and time, I'll have to look. I have a copy of the invoice. I'll have to look on there. I'm sure I have it dated. But anyway, we set a date and time, and he comes down. And I'll be darned, man. At that time, a general average look would be Levi's and a t-shirt. You wear whatever Vans or whatever kind of tennis shoes, and it was just an average look, short hair and clean cut, all American. And don't please don't get all upset or offended regarding that. It's just a look that, let's just say, I had at the time. So, but the point I'm trying to make here is when I saw Randy Rhoads, he steps out of his little Scirocco. I'm pretty sure it was a Scirocco. It was kind of a dark gray looking car, and there he is, man. Shag hairdo, long blondish colored hair, like a dirty blonde, and very thin. Kind of, I would say, compared to the way I looked, he was thin. And, you know, he had black spandex pants on, and I remember his top being kind of loose, you know, his chest kind of exposed, and there was some jewelry on his wrist, and you know, the white capizios, and you know, he comes out, and I'm like, for me, this is just my thoughts on it, my take on it, that he looked like a rocker ready to go on stage. If you would see any pictures of the Rolling Stones or any other bands where everybody's dressed differently and all these different colors and stripes and squares and paisleys, and you know, he just fit that look. He looked like a rocker. He looked professional. And I greet him, we shake hands, very soft spoken. I mean, just polite, cordial. That was one of the things that sticks to my mind, is how easy he was to talk to. And we just kind of stood out there and we're waiting for, apparently he had invited some of the other Quiet Right members. I know Kevin Dubrow was there, he showed up. And there was some other guy, but I for the life of me, I just don't remember who it was. But this would be at my first shop on Columbia in, it was either San Gabriel, I'm thinking it's Rosemead. And I lived in a fourplex. It was a complex with 4 small houses, and the 2 front houses had double garages, and they were shared, 2 cars per garage, you know, 2 tenants. And I remember, you know, we casually walk up, and my shop was basically just a workbench. I had a bandsaw, a compressor, and a little spray area. And I think I had a total of 2 workbenches. And I have some pictures of them, and one of these days I'll post up like some of my early photographs. I should have had some ready for this video, but I just wanted to talk about Randy Rhoads, and that's all this is. You know, he comes into the garage, and we're walking. Well, we're walking up to the garage and, you know, talking, and he, of course, these guys Randy was smoking, and you know, he lights up, and they're just back and forth walking around, and you know, we're talking about the guitar. Okay, he wanted the flying V shape, he said, and then he wanted, of course, he honed in on the Dan Electro neck. And, you know, thank God I had already built some, so I knew what he was referring to. So he wanted a flying V guitar, but with the double humbuckings and the volume and tone per each guitar and a switch. It's basically a Les Paul setup. The toggle switch, however, was put on the upper wing along with the Strat cup output jack, which in a sense was good because when you plug in the cord, you would bring it around to the strap lock that was on the upper wing, and it just kind of hooked between the guitar and your guitar strap, and it just worked out perfect. And so he wanted basically the Fender tremolo. It was more of a Gibson scale though, but it was 6 inline, which would be Fender. So it was a combination of Fender and Gibson together. It was a set neck that was flat into the body, a Fender style tremolo with 6 saddles, and you know, you're using humbuckers. It was a 500K pot, standard mono jack, output jack, like I say, Strat cup jack. All the hardware was chrome. I used all chrome tuners, chrome bridge, chrome. Well, it was either chrome or probably stainless steel on the strap locks, and white cover plates. So we ended up using the chrome mounting rings around the humbucker, which looked pretty good. And so it was just a basic combination, like I say, of Fender and Gibson. And, you know, we talked about the bow tie. He had mentioned 2 additional things. He wanted bow tie inlay, or something that resembled that, and then he wanted polka dots on the body. But he was very, very secure about it. He didn't want the polka dots just put sporadically. You just get them and pop them on. Well, the method of how I put on the polka dots, that I'm not going to get into. That I don't think I'll ever give out that information. Uh, there's actually two methods. So, but so he wanted the dots put in some sort of a sequence, and set neck, and then it would be contoured in the back. And then, of course, the headstock was modified. And I remember him drawing. He made some sketches, and I neglected to get those sketches to show you, but they're floating out there on the internet. I'll make another video where I show the invoice, the sketches, and so forth. But these sketches were really crude, and so he showed me what he wanted as far as the bow tie, and then we had talked about the dots, the size of the dots, and now the scaling, you got to consider here, it was a Danelectro neck, so Danelectro scaling was roughly around 25, between 24 and 3/4 and 25-inch scale. And so we kind of went with that, and back then I was using nitrocellulose lacquer, so of course that would have been the finish application. I used the original sort of a medium-sized fret that was on the Danelectro neck, and I had to graph on the headstock because he also drew a little bit of a few designs of the headstock, but he never really honed in on what we know of today on the Sandoval Dot V. So I kind of finalized that. I took ideas, and I specifically designed and made a guitar. And he wasn't very adamant about, well, I want to come down and see. I deal with some people that, man, they got to know every freaking step of I want to see a picture. I want to see a picture before you move on. And he wasn't like that. He just gave me, I want arrow headstock, I want bow tie inlay, I want polka dots, and I want the Fender tremolo bridge 6 inline tuners to keep the string straight across the nut, and I want Gibson humbuckers and the electronics to pretty much be like a Les Paul, which you have volume and tone, and then the three-way toggle switch up on the upper wing. Now I wire this guitar differently than a Les Paul, so just keep that in mind. I'm going to give generalities about the guitar, but I'm really not going to go into detail in it because, as it is, there's so many people out there that are like jumping on my bandwagon, and I don't see a red cent. And, I'm flattered. They're great promoters in advertising somewhat of a guitar, that resembles what I do, but they will never, ever, ever be an original Sandoval Dot V. So if you're out there in the market for one, be wise, be careful about what you end up buying and what you pay out in money, because I have heard some horror stories, and we'll just let that go. But anyway, we talked about the guitar. I end up designing the whole guitar in terms of specifications, dimensions, the end result. He just said, go with it, build it. And he came down actually a total of 3 times. Let's see, wait a minute. 1, 2, no, maybe 5, because that would be for the initial consultation, then a deposit and a write-up, and then to pick up the guitar. There's 2 other times that he showed up, which is another story. But we'll get into that on some other video. But basically, that was our meeting. And, I remember that he would walk back and forth in my shop, and he's thinking about what he wants done. And then he kept looking and getting assurance from Kevin Dubrow. And he just kept doing that and doing that. I go, finally, I said, look, Randy, man, I appreciate what you're doing and trying to seek assurance from, Kevin and whoever else was there, but you're going to be the player of the guitar. So since you're having it custom made, build it the way you want it to be built. I just think he wanted to bring these other guys for support, which is fine, you know, and I'm glad he did. But I told him, I said, you know, Randy, you know, this is your guitar. You got to play it the way you want it, your design, your concepts, and I'll be the co-designer, builder, and fabricator of it all. Randy was not a guitar builder. Randy was a guitar player and had some ideas. I'm the guitar builder. I'm the designer and fabricator. And so that's pretty much what had happened. But I kind of have visions in my mind of him walking back and forth, and you know, and I have to remember back then, you know, we were both young, and we were kind of like young men, young kids in a sense, and I was experimenting and still dabbling with trying to make and set my career at a strong foundation as he was as a guitar player. And I mean, the guy was phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, he was phenomenal. But you know, we just talked ideas. We just shot ideas back and forth, and that's what you see today is pretty much the end result. Um, I haven't really seen the original one. I know the reaction of nitrocellulose and corrosion and what it can all do, the heat, moisture. If something's not maintained and it's just placed in any environment, you know, you know, there's going to be some corrosion, and the guitar, it's basically just wood and metal. So it's going to want to go back to earth. It's going to want to deteriorate. And that's kind of like, I've seen some photographs of it. And I know there's been people out there that tried to duplicate it and everything. And the guitar is a one-of-a-kind original that, in my opinion, should just be left as it is. And, you know, just keep it in a safe place, which they are. And if they ever approached me, I don't know if I would ever want to rebuild it. I would probably want to copy it to the T. I mean, get every little thing about it as close as possible. But to rebuild it, to refurbish it, no, I would just leave that one as it is, and then make a second one that would be using the same procedures, the same materials, the same parts and products that was used on that guitar. You know, through the years, I've come up with available parts and components. Things change as time goes on. You know, the government and the state, they come up, and the communities come up with all these policies about spray painting and safety, and a lot of items were discontinued, and prices have just like skyrocketed. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I mean, I could probably talk more about the guitar and, you know, my theories and opinions, but, you know, I think enough said on meeting Randy the first time, and even the other times that I met him. The man was a gentleman. He was a virtuoso. He was, in my sense, a musical scholar. He studied music. He wrote music. A performer, an outstanding performer. A showman, incredible showman. Soloist, unbelievable. He set a standard of rock and roll guitar playing that is just in a class of its own. And he was original. That's the part that I really like about who Randy Rhoads was. He was an original, all-around, talented human being. And with that being said, I'm just going to end it like this. And it's just a little bit of inspiring insight for you. So I hope you enjoyed this story. God bless you, and thank you so much for all the positive and uplifting comments. I really appreciate it with all my heart. Thank you. Bye-bye.